You ever felt like talking to your kids about money is harder than getting them to eat their vegetables? Well, you're not alone. And today's guest is here to change that game. Meet Julia Myers, the powerhouse behind Generational Wisdom, a platform that helps wealthy working families raise financially savvy kids without the dreaded entitlement. From piggy banks to portfolios, Julie equips parents with practical strategy to teach financial literacy at any age, empowering the next generation to handle wealth, wisdom, and responsibility. Named one of COMO's magazine 20 Under 40, was celebrated as a community icon by Columbia Magazine. Julia's influence expands far beyond her career in pharmacy. Today, she's sharing her mission, her top tips for raising family, financial, responsible kids, and their journey of balancing their career, their family, and purpose. Get ready to be inspired by the unstoppable Julie Myers.
Welcome to Power Your Profits podcast, your friendly guide in bringing your business revenue to the next level. Listen as host Dr. Susie Carter hears inspiring stories of success from her fellow entrepreneurs and transformational leaders. Prepare to make significant change to your strategies as they unravel the secrets of building multi-million-dollar businesses and the most effective tips on finance, marketing, and sales accountability. If you want to take your first steps towards explosive business growth, this podcast is for you. Without further ado, here is your host, Dr. Susie.
All right, Julia, creating generational wisdom is such a unique and impactful endeavor. What sparked your passion for helping wealthy working families navigate the tricky waters of financial education, and how does your platform tackle the issue for most families shy away from?
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. I think the word that we all grew up with was we want generational wealth. We
Mm.
want it for our kids. We're doing it for our kids. And when that day arrived for me financially, it was kind of this like aha moment, and the lights came on. I said, am I ready for them to inherit it all? Are they ready? And what do we need to do to bridge that gap? And so I am just on a mission to make generational wisdom a household term, because we need to know how to manage it, not just how to get money.
And how do you bridge that gap? Let's talk about the gaps.
Yes. So I have found in my experience that before we can even start talking about money, we have to think about what are our first memories of money? What are the money stories we tell ourselves? Growing up, my story was we had enough, but not everything we wanted. And you have to work until you're 65 and then you retire and then happy comes. And
Right.
that's the story I told myself is money equals happiness. And when we were sitting around the table, one of the kiddos said, are we rich? And I had to kind of look back, and all the moms out there know you don't ever answer the question the first time. You always say, well, what do you think rich means? And we got
Right.
to this conversation, and what they were describing in a lot of words based on the ranges of the kids was happy. Rich is happy. And I
Mm.
realized that that was a message that I had passed on. And I don't know that I believe that to be true. I think that
Right.
that's part of it, but I don't think that that's happiness. And so by walking parents through the very beginning of what is your money story and what did you tell yourself about being rich or being wealthy? Is that good or is that bad? And then realizing that all around us, social media and influences are coming at our kids from all different angles. And so walking through the story we tell ourselves to the story we tell our kids to what are they going to tell their kids, and
Right.
walking through that path so that at the end of the day, you're ending with not just confidence and not just communication, but you've got clarity that your legacy is going to outlive you because you talk about it. So that's what I do in the work that I have.
So let's talk about the biggest roadblocks we hit as parents trying to teach the financial responsibility, right? How can we kick these conversations off without the awkwardness? Like, I know
Oh,
I don't have a hard time talking about money. I've talked with money since my kids were little because my parents did not. Like, we didn't have anything about wealth or generational wealth. Like, wait, what? So how do you have those? What are the biggest roadblocks that you're seeing, and how do we tackle those?
I think it starts with our own reflection, looking ourselves in the mirror and saying, what are the feelings we're bringing into that conversation before it even starts? You grew
Mhm.
up, right? And talking about money and politics are taboo.
Yeah.
Well, it's not when you approach it without the emotion. And the very, very first step that I tell parents to do is tell it in a story. Tell it in a way that is safe, or that, do you remember the time that we were counting coins around the table and then we put them in the sleeves and then we took them to the bank? Kids love hearing stories, and your story can be part of your experience, but it doesn't have to define you. If you've never talked about money before, don't jump right in and talk about compound interest and stock options and trading. Do talk about something that all kids at all ages can relate to. And I say time management. From the minute you're like 3 years old, you know, when mom says you've got 3 minutes to put on your shoes and get out the door, that that's some concept of something that we measure. So what I like families to do, and an action that you could even take tonight when you're sitting around the dinner table, is ask the family, what does our schedule say about what we value as a family? What does our
Mm.
schedule say what we value as a family? Because you will very quickly find time is often traded for money. That's a concept we can teach and unpack and dive into. Activities, excursions, extracurriculars, those all take time and money. And there's often a close relationship between how you manage your time. You might feel busy, or you might feel like, oh, I wish I had more time. But how quickly does that then translate into how you manage your money, right? A budget. Everybody wishes they had more. And
Right.
yet at the same time, you spend what you have. And so I think those are safe, neutral ways to kind of explain the concept of a limited resource, which is time or money, and then how you can do different things to kind of manage that. And then backing into, what does it say about the values as a family? You're now tying how you spend your money with what you value. You as a family, not what the internet says, not what everybody else says, not what people say you should be doing, but what is important. And if you don't like how your schedule is, we all learned that during COVID, right? We're only putting pieces back in our bucket that fill us, or hope you are. Same with your budget. You can blow your budget up and start over, depending. And based on the ages of your kids, mine are ages 8 to 20. So we've got 5 of them. And so we are in the counting to calculus age of math. So there's going to be some age appropriate conversations, but at any age, kids can understand it's not in the schedule, or we don't have time to do that. And those are okay meanings, okay statements. But what is it about when we say that about money that makes us feel ugh, or shame, or frustration? So that's the very first homework everybody's got to do tonight.
Now I'm in the generational, right? So I did it with my kids, but now I'm seeing my grandkids and their conversations about money. I'm like, oh, I got to start all over again, right? My daughter just bought this beautiful multi-million-dollar home, and all my granddaughters thinking is, we're broke, we're broke, we're broke. We just bought this house. We have no money. We have no money. I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? Of course we have money. Look around you. We are abundant. Most people don't live like this, so it is like those age group conversations, and then generational, like it just didn't stop. Like I'm like, oh, okay, now I got to restart. They're 3 and they go to 12, right? To go,
Mhm.
oh, I got to start again. How do I have this conversation in this generation? Like we think it's done when our kids are grown, and it's never done, girl. Never done, Julia. Never.
Oh, no. And generationally, how your grandkids are going to bank is so very different. I have 2 generations of kids at home. I have both Gen Z and Gen Alpha, or some people say that generation that has not entered the workforce yet. That's what we're calling Generation Alpha. And they don't know of a time where you didn't pay by tapping. So
Right,
sometimes when I'm doing a workshop, I'll say, pretend that you're going to pay me something. How would you do that? And the older folks in the group, they are writing a check. They are
right,
opening their wallet with cash. What is cash these days anymore? And the kids are like, you tap it, or they pull their phones out and they're like, you Venmo and you transfer. So not only do we need to have these conversations, but also give ourselves some grace that the world of money now is done in such a different transactional way than how we were raised. Have your
yes,
grandkids ever been to the bank? I bring my kids in with me to the physical bank.
yeah,
And that's not a normal thing. And that's when I realized that we were doing something a little bit different as a family, because the teller was like, what do you mean a check register? And I said, yeah, I need some more check registers because we're showing how to do pencil and paper and physical money before we're doing digital at my house. And they're like, I have to ask my manager what that is. The teller didn't know
The
what the check
seller didn't
register
know.
was. And so they also were like, you're the first kids we've seen in 2 weeks
Oh,
come
wow.
into the bank. And so when we think about it as parents, that there's no playbook or rule book or map how to be a parent. And there's definitely not one when it comes to money in this generation and day and age.
So let's talk about entitlement. How does generational wisdom help families cultivate financially responsible kids?
So where entitlement comes from is that gap between what they are used to and what they get.
Hmm.
So often the entitlement, it's super easy to say that kid is entitled, or that over there is what entitlement looks like when the kid's crying at Disneyland that they didn't get the toy they want. Where do we think that comes from? That comes from probably us as parents, which is sometimes hard to hear, where our intentions are the best. We want the best for our kids. We want things that we didn't have growing up, or we want to make sure that they have this level of comfort and flexibility that we think will serve them, but really it doesn't. We've got to teach hard. And so when we think about entitlement, it's how are we managing those expectations and knowing that every family is going to struggle in different ways. I talk about entitlement all the time, and my daughter, when we got to the DMV, asked me, where's the fast pass line? I can't stand in this line. This is too long. Where's the fast pass line? And it was this realization to me that we've only ever known the fast pass line. How would she know there's a normal line?
Right.
And so it is just this aha moment that how we are holding our kids to the expectations and what they're used to really, really falls back on us as parents. And then the flip side of that is contentment. So I think there's something to be said about gratitude and being appreciative for what you have. And then there's also this level of contentment that says, what I have is enough. It's not that I'm unhappy if I get more, it's that I'm content. My cup is full. I have what I need. And I am not out there expecting more or expecting somebody else to fill my cup. It's kind of internal contentment. And so we spend a lot of time in our family. The first dollars we earn, we're giving and we're sharing, depending on how old they are. Those are different languages you can use, but realizing we're stewards of the money, it's not just for us to spend. Like our cup is full, and therefore we can be overflowing and be generous, not the more I earn, the more I get to spend on me. Because at the end of the day, I think we've all realized at a certain dollar amount, like not a whole lot changes
Right.
other than you change.
Yeah. You're like, now what? I remember the first epiphany I had in that my daughter was, I don't know, they were like 8 or 9. She goes into her bathroom. She's like, oh, when is the cleaning lady coming? And I'm like, wait, what? It's, I'm like, okay, wait, I gotta back this up. I am like creating monsters, not knowing, right? Because I'm busy being busy working and doing all the things and going, I'm gonna shift this dynamic. So it does like that entitlement, like you said, like where's the fast pass, right? To go, oh, you're right. Like it's just unconscious because we need the ease, and then they see the ease of what we do and how we do it. So do you have do your kids do chores? Let's talk about, because I think those real world examples help us to go, what does that structure look like for your kids? And
Got
so they
it.
can see that.
I actually pay for value because in the real world, when we are performing in our jobs or as adults, we're compensated not just for showing up, but what's the value we create? What's the problem that we solve? And only about 20% of all jobs in the workforce are physical. So
Mm.
the minute you say chores, I associate that with mowing the lawn and babysitting and physical things I'm doing with my body. And 80% of the time in the real world, you are not using your physical body. You're using your cognitive abilities to solve problems, to add value into this world. So I am challenging my kids not only to do the physical, because I think that teaches good discipline. Um, we compensate them for learning. We'll compensate them for different levels of effort. So the practical example would be my kids, as soon as they're able to read, the very first book they read that they get paid to read is Who Moved My Cheese?
Mm.
And it is such a fun way. It's a short, easy read for them not only to check the box and say, oh, I read it, but now we're going to talk about it. And so I will bonus them based on how thorough they were or how above and beyond they went, and realize that not all actions are equal. So because your brother got $5, that doesn't mean you're going to automatically get $5. That's entitlement. That means you're just expecting what he got for a
Right.
different level of effort and input. And so I want to encourage those behaviors that I really want to cultivate. And I'm going to discourage those behaviors or penalize or whatever that doesn't work. They know that they have to wait till Friday, which is payday. So even if they read the book on a Monday or it's Sunday of a new week, they're like, I have to wait till payday, don't I? Yep, that's how that works. And as they get older, I love having them read books, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, and then talking to me about it. Because I think there's something to be said about reading and
Yeah.
encouraging different diversity. That then can extend to TED Talks. So we'll watch TED Talks as a family and then have a conversation about it and say, what value did that add to your life? And sometimes they'll be like, that was game changer. And other times they're like, I don't know what that was about. But exposing them to things that are going to serve them throughout their lifetime is often how I am compensating them or giving them money. Some other ways that we do it is we say, keep the change. So it is that fall season around homecomings or getting ready for prom or whatever it is. The bank of mom and dad is closed at our house.
Right.
However, we will say there's a fixed amount that you get ready for this event or this Greek formal or whatever it is that you're going to be going to. You can buy the ticket, you can buy the outfit, you can get your hair done or whatever, or you can keep all the money if you want. But that's the fixed amount that's coming from us that is going towards that particular mutually agreed upon event. And you'd be amazed what they don't buy because it's now their money, putting them
Right.
in the driver's seat, putting them in control. When we're saving up for cars, we'll say, whatever you save, we will match half.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find a cheap car now, but that means you got to save longer. That doesn't mean that we're going to go in and give you more just because inflation went up. No, that's a lesson you get to learn yourself.
Right. I know I did that with my kids and it worked so great, right? I remember my daughter, when she was in middle school, the parents were giving them credit cards. Like, what do you mean? They're like, well, Stacy has a credit card. I'm like, what do you mean she has a credit card? Like it was beyond my, for whatever she wants. I'm like, and we have to earn everything. I'm like, welcome to the real world, my child. Like I didn't have strategy around it. It was just like, look, if you want something, you're going to earn it. Right. So I love that you're putting, really bumper rails on how do we do this and raise responsible human beings that can really look at their life, and common sense finances don't always go hand in hand. How do you weave the practical wisdom into your lessons that are traditionally overlooked in financial education?
You're listening to another episode of Power Your Profits podcast. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. Overwhelmed by the complexity of business profit strategies? Jump aboard the Bullet Train to Big Profits course, a streamlined solution by Dr. Susie Carter. This course is designed to uncomplicate the path to profitability. Imagine being able to identify and execute profit strategies with ease, skyrocketing your revenues. Visit course.poweryourprofits.com and sign up for the Bullet Train to Big Profits course today. Are you tired of struggling to take your business to the next level? Power Your Profits is the game-changing book you've been waiting for. Dr. Susie Carter, creator of the Predictable Success Method, reveals her proven strategies for explosive growth. From daily operations to marketing systems, this comprehensive guide empowers you to achieve predictable revenue and profit growth. Don't miss out on this invaluable wisdom. Transform your business today. Find your copy at books.poweryourprofits.com.
I will say school is good sometimes
Mhm.
when it comes to teaching numbers. I say school teaches the birds and the bees too, but
Right.
the values and implementing the practice happens at home. So that means we have a date night, my husband and I, and we have a budget night, and the kids know about it. They're like, okay, what's going on? When we pay bills, we actually have the kids see what the bill is, whether it's the gas or the utility. We'll have them read off the number while we type it in the computer, or we'll take turns, not necessarily assigning a feeling to how much something is or isn't, but more just this is the process. This is how you adult. because I think the study that came out last year was that 24% of young adults feel confident in their ability to manage finances. So 75-ish% of them do not feel confident. And where does confidence come from? We can teach them till we're blue in the face. It's practice.
Yeah.
So the daily stuff of, the bills are coming in or talking about, hey, today was payday. You don't have to tell them how much if you don't want to. You
Right.
know, the fact that they will be adults, that they will be at 18 magically granted all kinds of power and authority that you may not want them to have at 18. Those are things that we need to think about as parents, so that practically when they're faced with that first credit card application in the mail, that should not be the first time you're talking about credit cards and debt. It should
Right.
happen well before then. And so those would be just a couple examples I can think of. Safe ways for them to fail. You use the term guardrails or bumpers. Absolutely. I have two now that are 18 and older, and it is scary to think about what they can co-sign for with their friends or significant others, that they can sit in the dental chair and sign for a dental plan for Invisalign
Right.
because their person tried to sell it to them. Those are all conversations that you want to have well before they've launched. And then always open that communication so that when something does come up, they can call you and you're not saying, can't believe you did that. It's how are we going to learn from that? We
Right.
need safe ways for our kids to fail, especially when there's high net worth involved. There's names on buildings, there's legacies at stake. Do they know what those decisions are that change their financial future, both permanently or from an inheritance or trust standpoint? I think those need to be healthy, real conversations that I'm not going to support you being a basket weaver if that is not your purpose and calling in life.
So can you share a couple of success stories where parents saw a major breakthrough with their kids? I know you have it down. You've been working with this in a long time, but I want people to
Yeah.
hear, someone that this is new to, that they're like, oh, I didn't even think about, I have to have this conversation with my kids. So can you give us some examples?
I am excited to say that there is a family that I can think of that the matriarch, so grandma, had a significant amount of wealth and was leaving it all to the grandkids. And so there was no communication all the way through for whatever reason. And then one of the grandkids really sat down and did some soul searching and said, well, what is really going on and how do we do that? And it started with the parent, the middle generation, cutting off the credit card and saying, you have 6 months to launch from the house. I know you think that there's an inheritance coming, but you are, well beyond when you should be living at home. And this basement lifestyle is not going to continue. What we are going to do is give you a 6-month runway or roadmap. You've got 6 months to figure out where you're going to work, what you're going to do, and you cannot sit back and just wait for the day that grandma passes or the one time a year that she's giving you a check. That's just not how it's going to work. And so I was really excited to hear about that. I'm also really encouraged to see a lot of the entrepreneurship happening at a younger age. When kids are given a head start, and I say a financial foundation is absolutely a head start, that doesn't mean it's the blank check. So
Right.
that head start means that you're cultivating a skill, you're applying for patents at a young age, or you're trying new things that maybe in an entrepreneurial sense we didn't have growing up, or that, I had to earn and achieve that first million. And so being able to cultivate that and make it a challenge and not an expectation that I'm going to be set for the rest of my life. So that's another one I can think of, is a little kiddo that started a company with some of the family money. And now that is something he can be proud of and be part of. The last example I can think of is working in a family business when the kids don't want to inherit what the parents have done. Comes up more and more and more. And there's sometimes a mismatched expectation that the parents are saying, well, you're going to do this, right? After I'm gone. And the kids are like, no, I have a different calling. And it's facilitating some of those conversations that start off with money, but really, as you unpack, have nothing to do with money and has everything to do with what does money mean? Does money mean happiness? Does money mean freedom? And then it's not what do you want to be when you grow up? It's reframing the conversation of who do you want to be? Like what do you want to do is like that question everybody gets asked, right?
Right.
And no one was ever asking these kids of some family businesses to say, what do you want to do is just assumed. And so how do you create that safe space to then continue the conversations? Those would be kind of three examples of things that I've run into, not just once or twice, but on a regular basis when it comes to money and wealth. And we don't need the Hollywood examples of fallout or Hollywood examples of kids gone awry. We want examples of families that are doing this well. And there are a few out there that I've been studying that I just think are fascinating.
Right. Just what are the simple doable things? Just even the book, right? And just paying them to read the book. That's genius, right? To go look outside of just the chores. Because I was very chore driven, right? You do something, get paid. And one of my beliefs is you can have whatever you want, work hard, right? And that's been one I've been trying to demyth for my life of going, I don't
Mhm.
work hard, it comes to me, it's effortless.
We see that in Gen Z that there's this now resistance of trading time for money. And yet there is this perception that that money will just happen. So when I'm working with the young adults, it's, does your income match the lifestyle you desire?
Right.
And does the lifestyle you desire match your income? And if those aren't in place, you got to move one or the other. It's not hard and easy, guys. It's hard and harder. Which one do
Right.
you pick? And they're
My
like, "Oh,
daughter, my
really?"
daughter, who is a equity investor, right? She runs a firm in San Francisco. When she was in the seventh grade, they used to count my money because I used to get tips. So, back in the day, I was a hairdresser and she would count the money, organize the money. And she's like, Mom, here's what I want. So she created her little budget in the back seat and like what kind of car she wanted, where she wanted to live. And she goes, I only need $10,000 a month to have my life the way I want. I'm like, that is awesome, baby. You only need $10,000 a month, which is great. Like, here's my life and here's what I need. And now what kind of
Mhm.
career education do I need? It's just a great little lesson to go, well, what would your lifestyle need? And let's talk about what it is. And, think back, that's probably 30 grand now, back in the day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's super important because I think we do a disservice when there's luxury college apartments with tanning beds and granite countertops and fitness gyms. And our kids are growing up in an environment where they're around all kinds of affluence. And yet we're 40 years ahead of them in earning that. And so the reality of adulting is you don't get that day one in your first job at 21.
Right.
Which, by the way, Gen Z, that's the average age of the first job is 21. For millennials, it was 13. So we're now seeing just a huge difference in the entering the workforce. So those lessons that you're struggling with your 21 Gen Z employees, you're along with everybody else that is teaching them how to punch a clock and show up on time and those sorts of things in our businesses.
Okay, that's wild. I didn't know that statistic.
Mhm.
That makes so much sense. I have a lot of clients in the beauty industry and this young workforce that's coming in, these spa owners, are just pulling their hair out. It's like they've never had a real job, right? Where when we were kids, I worked from 10 years old on,
Mhm.
you know,
Absolutely.
and
And the resistance for working extra is rooted in the data that says they don't know in Gen Z that they'll ever be able to retire, that there'll ever be enough money for them to stop working. And so, why would you work extra hard now? Why would you save a lot now? It's not going to be there, or you'll never be able to afford it, which I think is just fascinating compared to millennials that are like, let's fire, or boomers that are like, I have a pension. The
right.
Gen Z has a very different outlook on their financial futures as well.
So for parents who are just starting out on this journey, let's talk about what steps they should take, right? And what lessons they should implement and how can they play with you to make this process a little easier.
I say it's super easy to talk to kids about how to spend money. So don't even spend time on it. Skip that part. Relieve yourself. There is enough all around you. I'm teaching them how to spend money. What we really want to teach them is how do we earn money and how do we save and invest money and how do we share money? And I think starting with those basic things, that's what money is for. It's a tool, can
Yes.
apply to any age and basically say, how are we going to use this tool to serve our greater purpose? How are we going to use this tool to align with the values of our family? And so, what I've created is a trademarked discernment quadrant that basically says when you can buy anything, what do you buy? Right? When you have this level of affluence that allows you, it's such a blessing, but it's also a responsibility. when you have a certain amount of money, you can buy anything. How do you make that decision, and where is the decision based in? And so if folks are interested in learning more about that, we can start that family dinner table conversation all the way through sitting down and consulting through what's a big purchase you have coming up. And let's walk through this discernment quadrant, because we've got to practice discernment. That's not a word we use enough, especially with our kids. We don't want them to do hard, but life is hard, and we need to give them those skills, but also that like roadmap and that framework, so that when you're not here. And what led me into all this in the very beginning was I was sitting in for surgery. I had a huge medical condition that changed the trajectory of my entire career. And one of the questions was, not only are your affairs in order, but can your kids or whoever it is communicate what that vision is? And it just stopped me in my tracks to say, I don't know that we're super clear on that. I don't know that they would know how to make those decisions without me around. So
Right.
that empowered me to create this framework, to create this movement of generational wisdom.
And so you have a mini series for us, the 5 conversation starters. Talk a little bit about that. We'll have it in the show notes so you can click that link, but let's kind of give what outcome we'll get from having that, taking that series.
Yes. So I think for those families that have either never talked about money or have not talked about it in a healthy way, or it's very emotionally charged, dinner table conversations are a great place to just kind of neutralize the conversation. And so in the mini series, it's a series of 5 questions, because, as a mom, if you pepper them with all 5 questions and then leave, we've not really created a lasting impact. We've just really irritated them and earned some eye rolls. So over the course of 2 weeks, what we're going to do is dive into 5 different conversations that can really spark some healthy conversation around money without actually talking about money, without making it a judgment call or a good thing or a bad thing. But we're able to really get into some deep reflective conversations. And in our house, we have a variety of ages. And so it's fascinating to have everybody contribute. And it applies to both younger children, older children, even to your grandparents. We could all use this over Thanksgiving for sure. So pick your favorite question. You've got 5 coming at you over 2 weeks. And in this mini series, the end deliverable is going to be, you're going to have a very clear vision on what is important to your family and what you want to work on. You've identified those gaps in what you as a parent think your kids have learned from you versus what they're telling you that they think they've learned.
Oh my gosh, Julia, you've given us a treasure trove today. Practical tips, inspiring stories, and really a fresh perspective on raising financially savvy kids, whether it's turning your piggy banks into life lessons or tackling tough money talks with grace. You've shown us financial education that's more than essential. It can be empowering and fun. For all listeners, remember, the seeds you plant today will grow into financial legacies of tomorrow. If you know someone that needs Julia's content, needs this podcast, please share it with them. Share it on your social media. Somebody needs help, right? In going, how do I have these conversations to raise the next financial generation so that we can create little money smart leaders? To everyone listening, remember, talking about money feels uncomfortable at times, but it's one of our greatest gifts we can give to our kids, our families, our communities. Start that conversation today. And as Julia reminded us, do it with wisdom, patience, and a sense of purpose. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, take care of yourself and your financial freedom and future. I'm Dr. Susie Carter. Thank you, Julia, for being here and being such a leader in our industry.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Power Your Profits podcast. Let these building blocks from today's most successful industry leaders equip you with the necessary resources and tools to finally establish the highly profitable business of your dreams. Want to hear more? Listen to more episodes at www.poweryourprofitspodcast.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the show. Now is your time to rise to the top of your game. So be sure to catch our next episode. Until next time.